Greetings everyone, welcome to Chess Advanced, and this is one of the best games of Fabi you'll ever see because simply because of the fact it's just so beautiful. And I'm going to be showing two games that was from day three. I've already showed the third game versus Gukesh. I mean, that was spectacular. If you should go check it out. Even if you don't want to check it out on my channel, you can just go check it out on Chessbase's channel, Chessbase India channel, and it's absolutely brilliant. But first, this game, this is Fabi versus Liam Lee, and this game is just so amazing. I'm really excited to show it to you. So without further ado, let's start with this game. Fabi started with e4. We have e5 by Liam Lee, knight to f3, knight to c6, and just going for this bishop to e5. We have the real Lopez on the board, knight to f6, going for the Berlin defense, castles, knight caps on e4, and rook to e1. And we have the Rio Gambit accepted. So let's see what happens now. Knight to d6, but now just knight captures. Going for all sorts of discoveries in this position, so you have to be careful. Bishop blocks, that's the only move. Bishop to f1, but now just knight to f5. Now we have knight to f3 back, castles d4, and now just going for d5, c3, and now just bishop to d6, having a very solid structure. This knight is here instead of that Slav kind of setup against the d4, but it's fine. Here just a4, and now just rook a to e8, rook caps on e8, queen captures, and now just going for even a5. I mean, this is something that I think Fabi has been preparing a lot recently. He tried to do something like this to Gukesh as well, and to other players as well. So I think he is well within his prep. Rook c to knight c to e7, a6, and now just b6. Now we have c4, but now comes this bishop to e6, and knight to c3, c6, and just g4. Attacking the knight, we have knight to h6, h3, and now just comes this rook to d8. And there are a lot of ways you can play this variation. You might seem like this knight is feels like a bit misplaced. Why aren't you just going there? Well, you could go there, but if you go there, then after g captures, queen to c2, just trying to infiltrate. But we have this queen to g, a knight to g6, c captures, and after c captures, you get this rook to e1, just nicely aligning the rook against the queen, and rook to c8. Now you just get this very nice queen to d2, bishop to f4, attacking the queen. Queen moves, queen to d8, and now you're trying to break through, but there is no easy way to break through. You can get this knight here, but after trade or even bishop trades and pawn trades or either rook trades, what do you have in this position? You have absolutely nothing, and that's the whole point about it. There is no actual way to. This bishop and this knight are doing a very nice job of actually blockading, and dark squares are caught by this bishop, so there is not many ways to actually break through here, and you have just lost the bishop for absolutely nothing. Knight to e2, you play bishop to g5, knight to g3, you play knight to f4, queen moves, now bishop attacks it, queen moves, and now you play bishop to g5 again. Even if you trade, you just fix the pawn structure again, king to h1, and there's absolutely nothing. So that seems like a nice move when you see it, but when you actually go deeper into it, it's not that much of a great move. Here queen to c2 was played, f5, and f5 is a very good move. I mean, you want to open up the king side, because it seems like white has maybe pushed a bit too much. You have also pushed on the king side, you have also pushed on the queen side. Doesn't seem like a sensible way to actually play chess, but well, if it works, then there is no issues, and that's exactly what Fabi is going for, because I think this is prep. This is really good prep by Fabi. I think Fabi has not just been prepping for games, he's been prepping for World Chess Championship to come, and also for candidates. So I think he's just testing it out, and it looks a lot like that. Knight to g5 in this position by Fabi, attacking the bishop. Bishop moves, bishop to d2, and now just comes this queen to g6. We have c captures, knight captures, and c captures, and now we have rook to c1 and then the bishop to e7. But a very beautiful move in this position. I'm going to ask you to pause the video and try and find out the only move in this position which gives white a winning advantage, as you can see with our little friend Engine over there. So if we can find it out, that's absolutely incredible. So congratulations to everyone who's able to find this out. And the move is this beautiful queen captures on c8. Well, obviously not that, and it definitely ruined the moment. But again, the move is just queen captures on c8, sacrificing the queen, because that cannot be captured. If you go for rook captures in this position, then just rook captures, and your king is unfortunately running out of squares, because once the bishop goes here, you just get bishop to b4, and now what are you doing? There is no way. If you don't defend that, then you're getting checkmated. King has no escape route. What are you doing? You cannot push this, you cannot push this. It looks absolutely horrible. Queen to f6 is the only move, but instead of trading in this position, because that I can do with queen captures, bishop captures, king captures, that can be done any day. But here you have to understand this bishop to g2 is very powerful. g6, but now comes bishop captures, and after this now you're getting bishop caps on f8. It's actually a mate in 19 moves. So queen captures, knight to e6 check, just knight moves, and after g5 check, king moves, knight caps on f8, king to d6, rook to d8 check, king to e7, rook to d7 check, knight king captures knight, and just pawn captures, rook captures on a7, f3, rook captures on h7, b5, a7, b4, and a8 would be checkmate. And I mean, you can don't even have to find out the entire sequence. After you're able to find this, you know that this is absolutely winning. But here after bishop queen captures, not capturing the queen, but Liam Lee goes for bishop captures on g5. And still, if you think about it, there is not many ways to actually do anything. Let's say just the bishop captures was played by Fabi, but can you capture the queen now? No. The answer is no. If you go for capturing the queen now, then just rook captures, and you might feel like, well, there is no checkmate now. Knight has been eliminated. Now, why can't we capture the queen? Because simply because of the fact that once you go king to f7, now comes this rook to c7 check, and king to g8, and bishop caps on h6, even sacrificing that very strong bishop that we had. G captures, bishop to d3. This bishop to d3 is the only winning move in this position. You have to have this pawn, and what way best way to do this than just to pin it, and here we have b5, but now just rook captures, queen to c6, bishop captures, and you can understand that this pawn, this rook, and this bishop combined with all of this is actually capable of holding the queen. And here, after move like h5, now you just play bishop captures, king to h8, bishop to f5, king to g8, g captures. But now even going for this b4, bishop to g2, queen to f6, attacking the bishop. Bishop moves to g4, queen to c6. You play a move like h6, queen caps on h6, rook to h check, king to h7, and after a7, you might seem like you're just in time. Rook cannot move, but you have this very nice tactic: rook to h8, check, king moves, and a8 is queen. You're up a bit too many pawns. You're up a complete bishop, and the queen is coming in. There is no way you survive with the king being like that, so it's completely over. But here after bishop captures and bishop captures, the move that was played by Liam Lay in this position is queen captures on g5, and it's still winning, but you're gonna have to convert. Queen caps on e6 was played, queen to e6 check was played, but just king to h8, and now just comes this rook to c8, and not trading. If you trade, then you're just lost. So f captures was played by Liam Lay, but just queen to e5, and now I mean, either you trade and either you trade here and this first rook captures, and then you're just getting mated. So not mated, but you can just block with the knight, but position absolutely crumbles. But queen to h4 was played, but now just comes rook to c7, rook g8, queen goes back. If you trade queens, you're completely lost. Queen to f6, rook caps on a7, again with the same idea of pushing that pass pawn. b5, but now comes h captures, and now once the queen goes there, rook to d7, but you lose your pass pawn. But after rook caps on d5, you create another one. Queen to e6, rook caps on b5, knight caps on g4, d5, and here it's just absolutely insane. Queen to c8, d6. I mean, how are you ever going to stop that pass pawn? Knight to f6. Now you get this rook to e5, queen to c2, but now just rook goes back, attacking the queen. Queen to f5, bishop to s3, queen to b1 check, king moves, and now just rook to f8, just trying something. Both players are playing on absolutely seconds on the clock. Rook to e7 was tried, but just comes this knight to h5, attacking the queen. Queen to f3. I mean, even trolling here, because if you capture, then you're just getting mated, so there is no point about it. But knight to f6, d7, but now just comes this queen to. There is no defense. There is no defense absolutely here. Queen to g3, knight to h5 was played, rook to e8. Now, I mean, what do you do in this position? Queen to f7 was tried, but now rook captures, queen captures, and now this is coming. There is no way you could do anything. You can move the knight back, that was played, but just queen to d4, and now once the queen goes here, you just start to push another pass pawn as well. And it was on this move, on move 52, that Liam Lay resigned the game, and Fabi created this beautiful masterpiece, sacrificing the queen 3 times in the entire game. That's absolutely crazy, and still he was able to win the game with and with very nice score. He's now, I think, 12 out of 14 games. That's a dream score to have in a tournament. So let's see what he does in further games. This is actually the first game of Fabi. I showed it in the wrong order. The first game I showed was from round 8. This is from round 7. But orders doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But because the games are absolutely insane. Fabi's with the black pieces now, and with the white pieces we have Grigory Oparin. And one of the games of Grigory Oparin I also showed on the channel against Gukesh. You have to see that. That's a very brilliant queen sacrifice. So you're absolutely going to adore that one. But this is with Fabi. Let's see how he does it. D4 he plays, and we have knight to f6 going for the Indian game, knight to f3, e6, and now just going for g3. We have the knight's variation, fiend ghetto variation, bishop to g2, bishop to b7, the counter fiend ghetto, castles, and now just going for c5. And bishop to g5, but now just c captures, knight captures, bishop captures, and king captures. Queen to b6, attacking the knight, but just queen to d3. And now just going for this knight to c6, putting some pressure on that knight, asking if maybe you'll just be interested in trading. If you trade, it's fine, but then you've lost the bishop, you've lost the knight. There could be some attacking chances. Knight to f3 was played, but just d5, immediately striking in the center, a4, b4, and now just going for this knight bd2, bishop to e7, c4, but just b captures. This b captures, it's not that good of a move, but then again, I mean, if it works, if we can make it work, then it's fine. Castles, but now just comes this rook f to b1, queen to c7, and after c4, I mean, white is doing absolutely fine. There is no issues in white's position. But then again, I think, again, it just feel like, all of this is still prep. Rook f to d8, c captures, knight captures, and just queen to c4. You don't want to allow any of that to happen. f6, pushing the bishop back. Bishop goes back, but bishop doesn't have many squares. Where are you putting the bishop if that comes? We have rook queen to d7, not going for any of that, obviously, because this was also an idea, but not going for that. The best move for white in this position is, you're not going to believe this move. The move is knight to f1, getting the knight there, maybe so just opening up some squares for the bishop, and that's the best move. And it's so difficult to find, because you play knight c to b4, and bishop to d2, attacking that those knights. We have rook a to c8, attacking the queen. Queen moves, and now just going for rook to c2. You have to just move the rook now. Rook to a2, knight c to b4, again attacking the rook. Rook to a1, and after rook to b8, you play this a5, just making some breathing room for your queen. Also, maybe just asking for a queen trade later. But after knight to a6, you just play queen to c4, queen to c8, asking for a queen trade. You go for it. Queen captures, rook to b7, just going after these pawns and that bishop. Rook to c7, rook a b1, and after just rook goes to d7, you just trade a pair. And now, I mean, your position looks fine, but then again, it's most likely going to be a draw. But I think draw would have been better instead of what followed here. After queen to d7, we have knight to e4, but knight to e4 looks like, much better move than knight to f1. But where are you putting the knight next? Let's say if even if this comes, what are you doing? And even this comes, then your pawn structure is ruined. So what are you doing here? Here rook a to c8 was played, just preparing this, and also preparing a lot of threats, because that would come with an attack on the queen. And again, the best is bishop to d2. You want to stop this, or you want to stop this, because those knights are absolutely amazing. And again, not allow white to go black to go for that bishop capture and ruin your pawn structure. That's the idea. But here after f5, you play knight to c5. Again, you have to understand, this is a crazy engine line. This might never exist, but again, this is the best that you have. Bishop captures, queen captures, and after going for e5, queen to b5, e4, attacking the knight. Knight goes to g1, and this is so ugly. Even this can come in, this can come in. There is nothing that you can do about that. Queen to e6. Now you play this rook to c1, h6, but now comes queen to a6, and now this comes this queen to king to h7, knight to h3, trying to get the knight into the game, but e3. And now after bishop to a5, because you cannot capture, capture, and all of this, your this position just becomes absolute hell. But here after rook to d6, just insanely attacking the queen, and all of these things. By the way, rook is defended, you don't have to worry about that. f3, but now comes this g4, and after this rook a to b1, even g4. Knight moves back. Now you have to understand, this knight is absolutely trapped. There is no way for this knight to get back into the game that easily. And after h5, king to h4, so you're just playing basically a piece down in this position. And with your queen stuck there, you have no way to make any counterplay. There are so many moves in this position that can be played, and your position is absolutely dead. And what do you do here? There is nothing. So I think going for a variation like this to try and even draw the game is commendable, but at the same time, no one would actually go for this. But after rook a to c8, here rook a to c8, just trying to go for some discoveries. Queen to b3 was played by Grigory, but it just doesn't work, because here just comes f5. Now, same idea I showed you on the lines. Knight e to d2, bishop to f6, but now just comes this rook to a3. That rook was under attack, had to move e5. Now, where is the bishop going? You could go for this. Here bishop to e3 was played, but now just e4, knight to g1, and just knight to a5, attacking the queen, just still improving the pieces, all slowly and slowly, just opening up the rooks, moving the knights to the optimum square, getting the bishop to the right square. He's playing it so flawlessly here, Fabi. It's just so difficult to see it through. Queen to b5. Now you play knight captures on e3, and after rook captures, queen captures on b2, and he's just piece up. Just like that, just by move 27, he's piece up. I mean, that's insane. Queen captures on f5 was played by Grigory, but just queen to d5, asking for a queen trade. I'm a piece up, I'd like to trade queens. Queen captures, rook captures on e4, 2 pawns for the piece. It's still going to be a grind, but then again, I mean, he's better here. Knight to c4, but now just comes this knight to f3, knight to d6, and rook to e4. That rook was under attack. Rook d to c5, but now comes this rook to d1. Rook to c6, pawn to h4, h6, but now just rook to d5, rook to c4. I mean, you have to try something. If you trade more pieces, you're already a piece down. The endgame would be completely lost for you, but rook captures still. Grigory goes for it, knight captures, but now just g4. bishop to c3, g5. But now just going for knight to b6, rook to d6, and now after h5 you play e3 to try and just nullify this bishop's influence in the future. But then again, the ideas like these in the future becomes available. So here just king to f7, knight to g1, and now just going for this knight to c4, f4, rook caps on a4. Now that pawn is gone. This is an outside pass pawn. You don't have a piece, and I mean this is basically resignable. But Gregory keeps on fighting. I think both players were very much down on the clock. Knight to e2 was played, but just bishop to b4, rook to c6, and now just comes this bishop back to d2, just targeting these weak pawns. I mean, weak part of this pawn chain. Rook to c7 check, king to e6, and now just knight to d4 check. King moves, but now just rook captures, but now this bishop captures. That also comes with an attack on the knight. Knight to e2, but now just king to e6 is played. King goes here, but now you could even throw in a little bit of that. But here after rook to g6 check, we have king to e7, and believe it or not, but Fabi's advantage has actually shrunk down to from being +3 here to just +1. But you have to find the right move in this position. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video and try and find out the only right move in this position, which maybe gives you some drawing chances here. So have at it. So congratulations to everyone who's able to find this move. You have to understand that Fabi has very less pawns to be able to queen. With 3 pieces, you might be able to mate, but 3 against 2 with no pawns is absolutely could be recipe for disaster. Here, knight to g3 is the idea. Just going after that pawn. After rook to a3 check, you play king to g2, knight to d5, just knight caps on h7. After rook to c3, just trying to still keep the pressure on, maybe just give a few checks, maybe just get the king in. Then here after king to h2, you just play bishop to d4, just trying and harassing that rook. But after rook to c2 check, king to g3, rook to c3 check, king goes back, knight to e3 now. There are a lot of ideas of this, just maybe just once the king moves, just trying and going for some checkmating patterns, but it's just very much difficult. Rook to a6, knight to g4 check, king moves. Now just bishop defends it very nicely and also blocks the rook. But once the rook gets loose, you play king to f7, and it's just difficult to stop all of these pawns. I think that's what Gregory saw in his calculations. But then you have to understand this is the best that you have. I mean, there is no other way. King to e7, f5 was played immediately, but f5 doesn't work simply because of the fact that rook to a3 check, king moves further, and now you're about to lose that knight as well. Here rook to g7 check, and now your knight is under attack, your rook is under attack. What are you doing here? f6 was played, but just rook captures. We have king to f5, knight to d5, and now just going for after the knight. But here just knight comes in, and you just sacrifice the knight for a pawn because that pawn was the only trouble here. But now there's no trouble here. Just rook to d5, you attack the bishop, defend the bishop, king moves a5, rook to d8 check, king to e7, and now there is no way. Whatever you do, that pawn is going to be protected. You can even push it, you can even trade the rooks, and you can even push that pass pawn. There is nothing. Even if you capture this, all of this, I think black would be much faster here. Rook to a7, rook to c8, king caps on a5, a4, rook to d8 check, king to e6, g6, a3, and I told you black is just much faster. You cannot do anything here. I mean, even if you try and go for here and try and just push that pass pawn, this comes in and you have to move the rook. Even if you move it with the check, king goes here, and then next move you're just going to promote. That is just far from promotion. The game is completely over. King to f6 was tried, played by Fabi, but now just game is absolutely over. Grigory realizes it, and in this move he resigns the game, and Fabi got his 2 consecutive victory today. He has 4 out of 4, and now he's going to play Gukesh in the last round, which I've shown on the channel how it goes. It's absolutely amazing. You can go check it out. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you all.